Hello, my name is Howe. I'm Director at Volition. Volition is the network in Leeds for the 97 charities working with people on a daily basis throughout Leeds with their mental health and well-being. In terms of co-production, I first sort of had an experience around this when I started working in the third sector sort of about 5 years ago. I was working for a local Leeds-based mental health charity called Touchstone, and I was delivering a health and wellbeing programme to people with long-term health conditions, both physical and mental health conditions. And it really was a sort of a course that it had things like complementary therapies, positive thinking sort of workshops. But what really struck me from that experience was around the commonalities of how people were feeling, and a lot of that was from the system, from having a long-term condition for such a long period of time. They were low in confidence, low in aspiration, low in thinking that they could ever have a positive, fulfilling life, not least because of how they were feeling physically, but also emotionally, the impact of having a long-term health condition, and again how the system had labelled them a patient and how they were known for their illness rather than who they were. And what the course that I ran, which was called the Positive Care Programme, did. At the end of it, people said, I feel like a human being again, I feel like I can have hope, I feel like I can achieve things, I feel like I can be me again, which was quite incredible after a sort of a 20-week, 1 day a week course with people. And the things that people really valued were not being labelled by their diagnosis, by being empowered, by actually that thing about being around people who were going through the same things or even worse things. The idea that actually they could go on to do volunteering and be part of their community, the idea that they had something to give as well. So it really opened my eyes to actually, what is it, the need for a human response to a lot of our needs, especially when we're unwell, either physically or mentally. My job at the moment, I work for Volition. We're a strategic, or we get involved with a lot of the strategic discussions in Leeds around mental health. In Leeds, we've got a lot of, we have what's called the mental health framework, which is really a strategy for how we want to redesign mental health services in the future, with a big focus on getting people out of, or having as few people as possible having to ever encounter secondary mental health services, putting a lot of resource around supporting people around prevention, about raising awareness, reducing discrimination, increasing tolerance around and understanding around mental health, the idea that we all have mental health, tools and techniques to support us to understand our own mental health. So that's where we're trying to head within Leeds. Within Leeds as well, part of that as well, there's a strong principle about service users or people who use services being at the core of that strategic development. So we actually have a group that's involved in all the strategic discussions around Leeds, and this is supported by a local organisation called Leeds Involving People. So within our key mental health partnership board, there are people who use services. Within the redesign of crisis services, we've started from the viewpoint of what it is to actually experience crisis. So we are ambitious that the principle of people being involved with services, people who've experienced mental health difficulties, should be at the core of decisions making across mental, because we believe that actually we can get better mental health services because we understand what people need, and we can hopefully better support people and their needs when they need it. On a day-to-day basis, there's a lot going on in Leeds around how we work with people, and from a third sector perspective, there is a lot of good practice around working with people in that empowering way, using sort of asset-based, strength-based. All these are very big buzzwords in Leeds at the moment. And within Leeds, there's lots of pockets of stuff going on around strength-based social work or asset-based sort of community development. So it's a big discussion piece at the moment in Leeds, and part of part of the policy drivers that are pushing that forward is this sustainability and transformation plan. So this idea that as a system, as a city, we need to have, the NHS needs to change, it needs to do things differently, it can't balance its books if it still does what it's always done, and so we need to do things differently. And one of the things that we're saying within Leeds is actually one of the big things we need to do differently is work with people in a different way and have different conversations with people and engage people in their own health and well-being. And that feels like it could be a big driver for co-production, those conversations across the city. It was interesting this morning, you know, and it's one, this is all big system challenging stuff, organisational boundaries, you know, as a system, as a city, we're trying to say to organisations, don't think about your own vested interests, don't think about your organisations. How best do we deliver how best do we support people in Leeds? What does that look like? And actually it shouldn't matter who delivers it. If X and Y create a better outcome, then that's what we should do, and who's best placed to deliver that. So that's sort of what I would say in response to some of the conversations that we had this morning. Key obstacles, I mean, we've talked about it, but I do think that culture thing is really important, and that's pulled out today. One of the things that we're trying, or some of the approaches in Leeds for our mental health trust has been around do small pockets of changing the trust, so getting the third sector in to work with the trust on specific projects, and hopefully that will start to change the culture. I think that, you know, I think that's difficult because third sector workers are going up against organisational boundaries all the time, practices and procedures, and that's exhausting for individuals. And so, you know, those things around culture, it's often about leadership and vision, there's about to be a new chief exec within Leeds for our mental health trust, and it will be interesting to see. It'd be great if she came in with a real belief in sort of co-production and empowering, empowerment, and fingers crossed that she will.